Fortunately, I'm in the office, not home, so it should work.
Okay, right. Hi, everybody. It's Paul Green here from the business community. So I'm here today with Roger Eddowes of Reinventing Accountants. Hi, Roger.
Hi, Paul. Pleased to be here.
Good. Roger has kindly agreed to be the guinea pig for this. I've not done this before using StreamYard or broadcast to 3 platforms live at the same time. So we're hoping that we don't crash the internet doing this, or I make a fool of myself. So Roger's kindly agreed to come along today so we can learn a little bit about his business. Also, he's going to share some top accountancy tips with us on cash flow, I think. Yeah, if you are tuning into this, and I'll mention this later, you're welcome to ask any questions of Roger. I can pop those questions up on the screen. So yeah, please feel free to do that. So welcome again, Roger. So Roger, do you just want to introduce yourself to anybody that's watching?
Yes, so hello everyone. I'm Roger Eddowes. I'm an accountant and business advisor, and often known as the business godparent by my clients. So that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, well, we'll find a little bit more about the business godparent later. So how did you get into your business, Roger? When did you start it, and how did you end up in this industry?
Right, so I actually started my life or my working life as a quantity surveyor, and you can imagine a quantity surveyor likes numbers, and yeah, I enjoyed my time as a quantity surveyor, and it lasted about 2 years because unfortunately in my early 20s I became ill, and but as you see, I've recovered. And as I was coming out of that illness, it was right in the recession of the early 90s. Mm-hmm. The construction industry was dead. The QS jobs were all disappearing, and there was no chance of me ever getting back into a sort of suitable role. So I went back to college and started the accountancy exams, and looked around for some work as well because it was part-time. So I ended up working for a small family business in Market Harborough, who took me on, understood my position recovering from my illness, and were very kind and supported me through to getting qualified. I'm quite a loyal person, so I stayed with them for a few years after getting qualified to sort of pay them back for all the investment they put in me. But because it was a family firm, I was never going to get to the top pole position, as it were. Mm-hmm. And it was just by chance one day I was reading the accountancy rag and noticed that there was an opportunity going in Towcester in South Northants, and there was a retiring accountant who had been let down by his successor or planned successor. So I went along for a chat, and before I knew it, I was in the building, taking over his client portfolio and finding myself self-employed running a business. So it all happened quite quickly. And that was back in 2004, I think now. So yeah, and time's flown by. So yeah, I haven't looked back. Like all these people who give up employment and go to loan, you don't look back. It's I'm probably unemployable now, but I love what I do. I love helping my clients, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think when you've been in self-employment for so long, going back to getting a job or something, it must be quite a shock for most. So I often ask people, what's the why about your business? So for anybody that's watching, Simon Sinek talks about the why of being in business as opposed to sort of what you do and how you do it. So what's your why, Roger? What sort of gets you out of bed in the morning and motivates you to do what you do?
Well, I look back to my childhood, and I always wanted to aspire to have my own business. I could see my friends' parents who were in business, and they all had the luxury trappings, expensive motor cars and boats and things like that. So that ticked all the boxes for me. So I've always aspired to run my own business and earn a fortune. Still aspiring for some of that, of course, but seriously, one thing that taught me about, particularly with my illness, was that the amount of support I got from everyone, not just family, friends, and then the people who took me on, gave me my first job in accountancy. And that was a family business, and they had several clients who they treated almost as part of their family and supported. And it wasn't just about doing the numbers. And I've always wanted to give something back, and they taught me how to look after family businesses and teach me all the sort of, trying to think of the word, into all the sort of foibles and things like that people have. And I really wanted to create an accounting practice where we weren't just doing numbers, but we were there on the other end of the phone, guiding and helping them through all the good times as well as the bad times. So, at the moment, we've been going through sort of the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of clients have not been able to do what they've been doing for the last few years and had to reinvent themselves. But they've needed someone there to say, Roger, are we being stupid? Is this a sensible thing for us now to be doing? And I get the satisfaction from being there and giving that advice. I'm not a trained mentor, and I don't profess to be a business coach. And sometimes these clients need proper business coaches who can go in there and give them sort of full-time support with all their processes and systems and things like that. But I can effectively be a sort of a non-executive director. It's giving back really and that's what I enjoy doing, and seeing those clients thrive and getting through the bad times as well as the good. So.
Okay, I think I rudely at one networking meeting called you the sort of like cuddling accountant or something like that. But that's sort of like morphed now into the business godparent, hasn't it? So you now use it as part of your brand. How did that name come about?
Well, in fact, it brings me back to where that came up in that meeting, because I remember saying that I'd been out to a client and she'd had a stressful fortnight and things were looking better. And the first thing she did when I walked into the building, she said, "Oh, I'm going to come and give you a big hug." So we all had a big hug, as it were, and one thing another, and I reported that back to that meeting. So I think that's where the sort of a hugging or the accountant came about. But in fact, that lady had been introduced to me by another client, and they were friends, and they were out with their respective partners for dinner one night, and they were talking about me, and I trust it's all good. But anyway, then one of them said, "Oh, it's a bit like our godparent. He keeps us out of trouble." And not just with making sure that they pay their tax on time, but I'm there when they suddenly make a loss and they've got a cash flow problem or something like that. They turn to me and say, "Roger, you've got to come and put us back on the straight and narrow." So they came up with a name, Business Godparent, and they were telling me about it the following week over coffee. And I don't know, I just had one of those light bulb moments and thought, that's another term we could use for business advisor, because I don't be careful what I say, but a lot of accountants and people out there call themselves business advisors. But what is a business advisor? And I wanted to not call myself a business advisor. I wanted to bring in this helping and caring and looking after aspect, and the godparent just seemed to sum it up. So we've stuck with that name, and it's going from strength to strength now. We have our publications that we call the Business Godparent, which is done a bit like a newspaper, and we've got a website now called the Business Parent, businessgodparents.co.uk, and the idea is that brings in all our collaborators that we work with as well. So if you've got a small family business, you've not just got access to me, you've got access to, say, a marketing person, HR person, bank manager, anything that a small business needs. The Business Godparent sort of forum will give you that facility.
I think it certainly helps distinguish you from the competition, because there's a lot of accountants out there. So I think having that aspect and choosing that, I think, is a great way of sort of identifying your sort of ideal target market. Because I know you tend to be attracted towards sort of family-run businesses. It's that added value that you give, isn't it? Helping people through troubled times, not just doing the number crunching. So I think that's great. We do have a question. Tony might want to elaborate if he's still on. And he sort of asked, do you think that accountants need to reinvent themselves in the new world? Did you have any thoughts on that? Tony might elaborate on the comments, but what would your initial thoughts be on that?
Absolutely. And it was an interesting article I read the other day where it was in our Institute magazine where someone was referring to a change that had happened in the last 5 months, was equivalent to 5 years in the industry. And businesses don't just want a number cruncher. We've got software and we've got all sorts of tools that can provide us with the data. But what the client needs or business needs is someone in to interpret that data and help them make those financial decisions. So accountants need to embrace all this technology, but then they need to learn how to communicate it to the various clients. So I use an example. I've got a chef who I look after. There's no point me turning up with 16-page accountancy document telling me what his profit is and what he's spent his money on, because he's got very limited vocabulary, which normally begins with an F or something like that. And he won't sit in the room for more than 5 minutes. So I've got to get my message over to him in a clear, concise way in 5 minutes in his language. And accountants need to be able to have that skill. And yes, they need to add up, obviously, but they need to, and that's what I think businesses want. And I think particularly at the moment, it's been highlighted with COVID-19 that lots of businesses perhaps have been comfortably just trundling along. It's not been a problem. They've always been making profits. But all of a sudden, if they haven't got up-to-date information and advice now, they can't make a decision for the rest of the year. And that might be crucial for them. So, the day of turning up with your Tesco's carrier bag full of receipts and 18 months later getting a tax bill, a long time.
I think, balance sheets and profit and loss sheets are a little bit bamboozling for most small business owners. It's like, what does it mean? And of course, most of these are like a fixed point in time, aren't they? So it's like cash flow forecasting and the like, I think is monthly management accounts and stuff like that, I think is very important to give business owners visibility. And like you say, particularly in the last sort of few months when things have been affected by the pandemic that we're in. So moving on to that, we're now, at the time of recording, we're now 6 months into a pandemic, and everybody's been impacted in some way by very unusual circumstances. What have you found with sort of firstly your clients, and then secondly you've got a number of staff? How did it impact your business? Because I know your guys went remote for a while. I think you're starting to come back now. So what's it been like for you as a business from the client side and also from the employee side?
Well, from our side, we were prepared for it. Prepared for lockdown, should I say? In beginning of the year, I'd had a detailed conversation with our IT supplier, just saying, what if this happened, etc. Could we continue to serve our clients? And the answer obviously was yes. And on the 22nd or was it 23rd of March, we all literally just picked up our computers and our telephones and went back home and worked. And we've been able to work ever since. We've since reopened the office, having done all the various COVID-19 assessments and putting glass screens up between people's desks and having policies about when clients can visit and etc. And I took the decision to open up the office, and I know a lot of companies haven't opened up the office, but I noticed that particularly younger members of my team were suffering in lockdown working from home. Okay, it might be okay for myself. I've got a nice house, nice garden. I can escape out to the garden. But particularly two of my team are living in apartments and buildings, etc. Same four walls. They can't detach or find it difficult to detach work from leisure, and it was all becoming blurred, and that was affecting productivity and just their whole demeanour and things like that. So we did open the office as quickly as we could, but obviously as safely as we could. So, and at the moment we are fully open throughout the working week, but we don't have everyone in at the same time. So we're there to respond to our clients. So actually we've got quite a bit of client pressure to reopen actually the clients want to get out and about as well, and see their accountants. I think, channels like this are great, but I think if you end up doing 8 Zoom calls a day, we've all heard of Zoom fatigue. It's just not the same as seeing someone.
I think it's the you obviously know my business, or part of my business is networking. I think people want to get out face to face, but they're still in fear of the current situation. And for me personally, I'm not prepared to sort of risk having an event that somebody might come to, walk away being infected, without a vaccine currently. So yeah, I think it's that need for sort of human contact, but it's got to be balanced, hasn't it, and appropriate. And like you say, everybody's got to be kept safe. So it's yeah. No, okay. So I know sort of like work-life balance is important for you, and I think you do something as a business a little bit different to most. Am I right in thinking that you're not open 5 days a week?
We certainly close on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
The intention is that everyone can go home and do their housework and mow the lawn and things like that, and make sure they've got the weekend free to go and do whatever they want, like jump out an airplane or do some extreme sport, But So we open, obviously we do longer hours on the Monday to Thursday. So, and that's worked quite well because we open. Someone's always in the office about 7:30 in the morning. But before lockdown, particularly, we've got some clients that perhaps work in London. Before they go up to town, they would pop in and see us, and then get on the train to London. They're still in there for 9 o'clock. They're not going to take time out of their working day, and if they're employed, have to take holiday and things like that. So it works quite well in making sure we're also accessible to clients as well as employees.
I was going to say, it's quite attractive from an employee point of view, to start the weekend early, effectively.
Yeah. But sometimes, give them a due. If we've got a deadline and something's not going quite right, we'll still be here on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah. So your hobby is sailing, I believe, which the backdrop sort of alludes to, I guess, or certainly.
Yes, So this is actually a war mule that the team did. We each had a canvas each. And it was a photo taken from the Isle of Wight looking over to Portsmouth. And, so we had, I don't know if anyone knows, Sarah Hodgkins does murals on walls. And she came in and the whole team did that in an afternoon. It was a team sort of.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So everybody's had at least one brushstroke in there somewhere.
And my boat's probably there. So.
Excellent. So we've obviously sort of getting through the pandemic has been one sort of like challenge, but over the years since you've been in business, what up until I guess the last few months, what's been the biggest challenge that you've faced in your business?
Time, to be honest. That's what and I know a lot of business owners say that, but you have your own business to run. And you've also got numerous clients. Well, I've got numerous clients that you look after, and it's trying to plan that time. How much, because it's very easy just to get carried away looking after your own clients and forget about your own business. And I sort of now in my own mind have Friday mornings as a pure, this is a Roger business sorting out type day. So if I need to write a blog, I would do that on a Friday morning, or if I need to sort out my insurances or something like that. So I try and make sure that I ring fence this time. And I don't think it will just apply to me. I think a lot of business owners all have the same issue. They all get wrapped up in looking after everyone else, but not themselves. So
I think you can get bogged down in the day-to-day running of the business. So, before you know it, 1 week's gone by, then another week's gone by, then it's a month, then it's a quarter, then it's a year. So I think, having that discipline to take yourself out, to do more of a strategic view or take a strategic look at your business, I think helps, doesn't it? Because sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees, which is, why sometimes it's useful to have an external coach, mentor, or somebody like that can come in and help with the business, and because they're not bogged down by the day-to-day firefighting that most small business owners do, I guess.
Absolutely, and you'll be pleased to know, for example, I have done my own tax return this year rather than wait to the 31st of January because I keep my Friday mornings to be able to do those sort of things. So
lead by example, Roger. It's got to be done. Okay, well, thanks for that insight into your business. You're kindly going to give us a little bit of share a little bit of your expertise and knowledge that people might be interested in. Again, if there's anybody listening wants to ask questions after Roger's done that, that'd be great. So you're going to give us a few little bits of your insights into helping with business cash flow, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Very, very welcome to.
Let me just switch the screen so it focuses a little bit more on you. Right, okay, the floor is yours.
Right, yes, so, and I suppose this has been highlighted in recent months, cash is effectively king in a business. And it's, what I'm saying to clients at the moment is, if you don't, it's all right having up-to-date information to tell you how much money you've made. But if you make, for example, if I do Paul's accounts, for example, and I send him do all his work in September, send him an invoice at the end of the September, and Paul doesn't pay me on to next year, what am I going to do in the meantime? So what I say to clients is, you've got to prepare your cash flow and build into that cash flow the fact that Paul is a bit naughty and will take 3 months to pay. And what are you going to do to fund your business in the meantime? You will always find holes, in your cash flow. So it's important to prepare that cash flow, look at where the holes are, and come up with solutions. Now, obviously, in Paul's instance, we could be going after him and saying, right, Paul, come on, you haven't paid your invoice. He'll come back and say, well, COVID-19's affected me. No one's paying me. And, the cycle will go on. So you then have to think to yourself, okay, well, I've still got to pay my staff's wages next month. I've still got to pay the rent of my office and things like that. So you have to look for sources of finance to plug that gap. And obviously, you can traditionally go to your bank, and yes, they've been very helpful at the moment, and you might well get your funding, but that may not be enough. So you then have to look at other factors, like, for example, when do your suppliers yourself need to be paid? Yes, you've got to pay your staff at the end of the month. They're going to moan at you if you don't. But for example, if you've got an insurance bill coming up, can you look at, say, financing it over 12 months rather than paying it all in month one? So it's looking at all the various expenditures you've got in your business, determining what you can agree with those suppliers about when you can pay them. So once you've gone and approached your suppliers and come up with all your payment plans, agreements, etc., you can plug that into a monthly cash flow. And again, you can see whether there are any holes or not. Now, one thing that people do tend to forget about, particularly when they're starting in business, and if they're VAT registered or something like that, they're all very busy collecting their invoices in. Paul will pay his amount, but you'll probably find that the invoice may have been for £1,000 plus VAT at £200. You've collected £1,200 off of Paul, and you've gone and spent that £1,200 on something else. Rather than, what I suggest to a lot of people is keep that £200 aside and put it into a VAT savings account or whatever you like to call it, so that when you come to the time you've got to pay your VAT, it is there, ready for you to pay over. Because generally, the revenue aren't very sympathetic for late payments of VAT, because you are a collector of taxes. It's not your money. But people do use it as a way to finance their business over a quarter. But you've got to always plan and realise that that is only there for a quarter, that cash. It's not there throughout the year. And the same is with sort of corporation tax or income tax. There are set dates during the year when you've got to pay your tax. So if you've got a limited company and you're making £100,000 worth of profit, you've got in your mind, you've got 19% tax to pay. So what you should be thinking to yourself is, well, I've got 19% tax, that's equivalent to 19,000. So for every sale I do, I've got to put 19% away. And then it sits in that account, the payment date for tax comes up, and you can pay it. And it all just makes it less painful and less stressful. People see that pot of money, quite a lot of people see that pot of money, and it's very tempting as the year goes on to see that pot of money, and then they think, oh, I could do with a new computer. Well, I'm just going to go out and borrow £1,000 from that tax savings pot and go and spend it on a new computer down at PC World. And then they end up paying £2,000 because they've been sold a new printer and all the other gizmos, and suddenly they're £2,000 down. And then they've got to, next month, they do some work, someone pays late, and the whole thing moves on and on and on, and eventually that £2,000 never ever gets put back into the pot. So you come to the tax payment date, and suddenly you're 2,000 short, and that's when the panic sets in. So what I say to clients is, try and be disciplined, but if it does happen that you're that £2,000 short at the end of time, don't panic. Talk to the revenue, just don't do nothing. The revenue, you can arrange a payment plan with them. If they're still not, if they won't oblige, well, you can actually finance your tax bill. You can go off to a finance company and we can introduce them to people where they will fund that tax bill over 12 months. So you just have to be imaginative sometimes about how you can plug those holes in your cash flow. Yes, traditionally it can be bank overdrafts. Bank loans tend to obviously to be cheaper, and you'll find a lot of banks these days don't like giving overdrafts out. They'd rather give you a loan. And the reason why that is because the interest rate's a lot lower. You can finance your VAT, you can finance your corporation tax, you can finance your self-assessment tax these days. You can finance most things. And because interest rates are relatively low at the moment, it's quite, in some cases, you can certainly get 0%. I know, for example, I pay all my insurances monthly at a 0%. So, and then obviously agree with all your suppliers, get payment plans with them. And if you know that you've got payment plans for the next 12 months, you know exactly what your figures are, and you can all plug that into his cash flow and keep monitoring it. That's the key. Keep revisiting that cash flow. And there's some nice bits of software out there now which will link up to your accountancy package and will synchronize with the data today and keep on remodeling that cash flow. So I urge people to, as a start, just do a cash flow, even if it was pen and paper. But then once you get the hang of it, it's then to move on to getting some sort of software package that will link up to your accounting package, and then it will become just habit for you to look at your cash flow projection as well as looking at how you're actually doing in terms of making profit. So it's becoming disciplined and keep on revisiting it.
No, I think absolutely. You know, people or small businesses often sort of bury their head in the sand, don't they, if they're in trouble. And I know from talking to you know, insolvency practitioners and things like that, if you are struggling, you know, the earlier that you can talk to your accountant or your bank or HMRC or insolvency practitioners out there, the sooner you know, that they can help you and sort of put a recovery plan in, I think. So yeah, I think that's important. And I think I saw I think you use it, Float, I think is one of the softwares that's used for cash flow forecasting. I saw that demoed the other day. That's a useful tool that I think interfaces with a lot of the accountancy, certainly the online stuff. So that's useful to have that type of software just to forecast.
Yeah, there's another one, Fluidly. We just got another bit of artificial intelligence built in. So, you know, you might say to yourself, well, I know Paul's going to pay next month. It will actually go back and have a look at your history and say, no, it doesn't pay every month, he pays every 2 months. So it will prepare the cash flow based on 2 months rather than 1 month.
Yeah, so, if we can use Dave as an example in the future, it'd be a bit better.
Well, here's Dave then, yeah.
Too close to the truth, Roger.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, thanks for that. If you were going to give just sort of like one from your experience, working with small business, if you were to give sort of one top tip, if you like, for business owners out there, what would that tip be?
There's so many tips you could give, but my tip would be to take a step back and plan.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter in what aspect of your business it is, whether it's my chef planning his next menu for next week, his autumn menu. He'll probably do that naturally because he loves doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But actually then to think, okay, this is what I'm doing, but how am I going to plan my finances around it? Do I need to buy any new equipment? How am I going to buy this new equipment?
Mm-hmm.
Don't just wait until the last minute and suddenly realise that you haven't got a food processor to make your whatever recipe you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's all about planning, because he might not have the cash to be able to pay for that food processor. So it's all about planning, I think. That's my main tip. And don't just sort of bundle along just hoping for the best.
Okay, thanks for that. So I'm just sharing your details on the screen now. I'll just check to see whether there's been any more comments or questions. Christina sort of acknowledged your straightforward advice on VAT, sort of saying it's crazy that people don't use this advice and plan for this, but you see it time and time again. If it's money in the bank, then it's like you say, it's easy to spend it, isn't it, rather than reserve it. I know there's some quite useful online banking platforms now that allow you to sort of put money away, won't it, in separate pots, so you can sort of safeguard it or ring fence it, I think. So okay, so your ordeal is over, Roger. So thanks for being the guinea pig today. So we seem to have got through it and no one died in the process, which is all good. So I'm going to stop the live broadcast for now. So thanks again. So that's Roger Eddowes from Reinventing Accountants. His details are scrolling along the bottom if you want to get in touch with Roger. A very, very useful chap. He's happy to sort of like help out. He's not going to start the invoice billing clock as soon as you ring him. So, if you need a little bit of advice on anything sort of financial, then please do give Roger a call. So thanks again, Roger.
No, it's a pleasure. And as I say, anyone in the business community, even if they're not a client, they just want to talk to me for some advice, always happy to, not a problem.